Well, hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Purple Door Podcast, a Friends Rewatch Pod. I'm one of your hosts, Alasdair, alongside my good friend DeeAnn. DeeAnn, how are you today?
Doing great, Al. Doing great. Loving this weather. Feeling a little like spring, but a little like we might be getting towards summer. So that's awesome. Went and saw a great movie. It's a good time of year. It's a good time of year.
A
Movies
good
are
time.
good. The weather is good. It is good.
Yeah, I've spent a
How
lot
are
of
you
time.
doing?
Oh, good. Yeah, spent a lot of time outside working on some projects and cleaned up the garage. But it's the perfect day to do it because it's
Yeah,
a little
yeah,
cool in the morning, a little cool in the evening, but lovely during the day. So good times here in North Texas, weather-wise, for all of us.
yes.
Well, awesome. Well, today we are going to review the one with the evil orthodontist. But as always, before that, let's get stuck into some bamboozled. And I know you went first last week, but I went first several weeks in a row, I think. So I think
Yes,
it's,
you did.
yes, I did. So it's definitely you this week and for another couple, I think.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Al.
You got it.
All right. Here is my first question. How long has it been since Rachel and Mindy have talked?
That is a great question. I did not write that down. I am going with 6 months.
Ooh, so very close. That was
Oh,
an excellent guess.
thank you.
7 months. 7 months.
7 months.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm curious, and I wish I would have been curious about this earlier, but I'm curious if it's actually been 7 months since the first episode and the airing of uh, this episode. But anyway,
That would be interesting to go back and look.
yeah, yep.
Yes.
So, all right. So I
Watch
am
it
ready
then.
for your question.
All right. My first one for you is, what phrase did Chandler use the last time he decided to be spontaneous?
Oh gosh, I don't
There,
know what he said, but it ended with a oh god, um, like a doodly or toodaloo or and DDO or
you just got it
I
correct.
just
You just got it.
yes,
Indeedio. Well
yes.
done.
Oh,
Well done.
DDO, great.
Indeedio it was.
That
Yes.
flew out. I'm like, I don't know why I said that.
Because deep down you knew. You knew that
Because
was
I
it.
knew I could
Yeah.
feel it. All right.
All right. So your next question for me.
Yes. What newspaper is the girl reading in the coffee shop? And she's like, they're sitting at the table in the window. And I think it's Chandler that they keep panning to, and she's reading a newspaper.
All right. I did not catch this, but again, I feel like I've got one of a couple. So I'll go with the Post.
Ah, good guess. It is
Ah,
actually the New York Times.
that would be my second guess.
It's
Yeah.
only because, it's all fuzzy and everything that I recognize the logo from my daily Wordle and
Yes.
connections and all that. So
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Well, we do, let's see, both Kate and I do Wordle, Connections, Strands, and the Mini, and once in a while we do
Yes.
Letterbox. What about you? What do you do? The same ones?
Okay. No. Okay, which one do you do once in a while?
Is it called Letterbox? Letter
Oh,
something?
okay. I don't know that one. See, I
Right.
always do connections and Wordle and the
Yep.
mini. And then sometimes I'll do strands.
All right. So
So,
yeah, though we do the same four. We do those four every day though. And
yeah.
Letterbox I like, but you can't share it. Like you can't share your answers or your time
Huh.
with your
I
significant
don't.
other. So I'm not
Is
so
it
keen on
okay?
it.
All right. Well, here's a really lame question for you. Is that one free? Is it on the app?
It's it is. It's on the app. I'll send
Is
you a
it?
thing to what it looks like. It's
Well,
the
yeah, because I've
yeah.
got the app. I don't know. Okay, I'm about to get distracted. I'm so
Oh
sorry.
no, I'm the one who started this conversation. You are quite all right.
Okay,
But
but
next
fun
question.
fact,
Well, fun
this
fact. Yes.
this episode originally aired April 6th, 1995. So that was this episode. So
Okay,
the
we'll have to
original,
backtrack.
yes, hang on.
Mm-hmm.
So the original episode, oh my gosh.
Let's
Okay,
see.
go ahead and ask me a question.
All right, we will work this one out. We're off to a discombobulated
Oh,
start.
we are, and I did that. I'm sorry.
No, I brought up the games, I think. Anyway,
Okay,
back on track.
Thursday, September 22nd, 1994. So September to April.
Seven
Is
months.
it 7 months? Ah,
7 months.
that's so fun. So there you go. So in real life, it was, I say real life.
Yes, in real life.
But, yeah, so that's fun. I like
I
that.
love
That's
it.
a
I
good
like it.
timeline. All
Good
right.
for them. All right. Well, my next question for you is: where did Rachel and Barry go to eat?
We've talked about this. It was the Russian tea
Yes,
room.
we have. Yes.
Yes, because we were talking about the rainbow room, and then we talked about the Russian tea room and all of that.
Yeah.
So yes, whenever she said that, I was like, "Oh, we've talked
Yeah. I
about
think it's the
that."
second time it's come up.
Uh-huh. Yes. Um. All right. How did Joey get the Peepers name?
Did he call information?
That's how he got the number.
How did he get the name? I do not remember. Oh, I'm not doing well.
So he asked the doorman, and then the doorman told him Sydney Marks, and then he called information and got Sydney Marks's
That's
number,
right.
and then it was a girl.
Which
Dun dun dun.
how they didn't know that from spying. I don't know.
Well,
You
if you've
know,
got a big old telescope in front of your
that's
head,
true.
like,
That's true. True. Good point. All right.
that's
My
fun.
next one for you is: how long did Chandler work on his answering machine message?
2 hours.
Yes, he did. Well done.
And
Yes.
did you notice that he didn't give his phone number, and he did he even give his name?
That's a very good point as well. Yeah, I don't think he did.
Okay, what game are Phoebe, Ross, and Joey? And then I think they had it set up for 4 people, but Rachel was reading a magazine. But I don't know. But definitely Phoebe, Ross, and Joey, possibly Monica, and then I think Chandler came in and started playing with them too. But anyway, all that to say, what game were they playing on the coffee table?
Gosh, I don't remember them even playing a game.
Well, and Joseph
Goodness.
wanted to argue with me about what game it was, and
All
I
right.
told him he's crazy
Well,
because
that's quite possible, but let's think. So that means let's go with checkers.
that's a good guess.
Oh,
Yeah. Um,
um,
so I said it was trouble because it
okay.
has the poppy thing in the middle,
Yes.
and then it's got all the little guys moving around. But Joseph was insistent that it was sorry, but I'm going with my answer,
All
trouble.
right. Well,
Yes.
I got neither, so that's all right. All right. So my next one for you is: what is Barry's receptionist's name?
Oh,
We don't see her, but he calls her on
we
the
don't.
intercom,
Yeah.
or answers her on the intercom.
Uh-huh. Was it Glinda?
It is not. It was Bernice.
Not even close.
Not even close. You
Mm-mm.
got wicked on the brain with Glinda.
Dang.
All right,
Yeah.
what you got for me?
All right. What is on the poster in Barry's office?
Yeah, it's very funny you ask that question, but I absolutely, and I'll tell you why later. But I'm going to go with some sort of beach ocean view.
No,
No,
it was a really bizarre
right?
like cartoon snake, and I couldn't figure out what it was
Yes,
wrapped around, but it's like pink and blue and
yes,
smiling, and
yeah.
it was, and I couldn't read the words that were on it, so I don't have any idea. But it was, they showed it quite a few times, like during the entire interaction between Rachel and him, whenever they were going back and forth. And it was weird, and that's why that stood out.
Well, on that
Yeah.
note, I'm going to jump to my last question. What
Okay.
color are the walls in Barry's office?
Are they cream?
They're green, but it's a weird green.
Green.
Yeah, it's a very odd kind of.
Like
I don't know,
olive?
it's light. It's almost limeish. It's not something I think you would choose for an office.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Hey,
All
what you got
right.
for me? I've got like four left, maybe five.
Okay, I've got three. I've got three.
All right.
Um, who does the peeper say that Monica looked like in her green dress?
Well, you've just taken one of my questions. What item of clothing does the
Oh,
paper look pretty in, which I like, and
there you go.
I do remember this one is Ingrid Bergman.
Yes, that is
Yes,
correct. Nice job, Mister.
there we go. I'm trying to get back on track because I had to Google them because I thought I knew who they were, but it's one of those things that do I really know? But thankfully, I did. All right, I'm going to ask you one. I've got two obscure questions for you, I think. But
Okay.
here's one that is unfair and mean, but I thought it was fun.
Ooh, I
So
like it.
when Rachel is on the phone with Mindy, do you remember she's walking around the table?
Yes.
How many times does another cast member lift their
Oh,
feet off the table?
oh God. Okay, and I almost asked you the question about who is it that makes her turn around, and
Yes.
because they were done. How many times?
Does a
Okay, so
cast
she
member
goes.
lift their feet up
So there's
from the
one,
table?
two, three, four, and then she goes around, and it's like one, two, three, four, five,
I'll give you a small hint. You did say
11.
that. Oh, it was eight. It was eight.
8!
Because she
Dang it!
doesn't walk past all of them because she stops at one point but it was
Yeah, and then she
yes,
turns around, and then she goes back, and
yep.
then I thought she went back, and then she's standing in front of Joey. Oh man, yeah, that was a nice little get or nice
Yeah,
little question.
little
Yeah.
tricky. All right, what
All
you
right.
got for me?
Who is it that says Mr. Peanut is gay?
I remember the line.
Mhm.
Go with Ross.
No, Ross is the one. So you're outing Mr. Peanut?
That's yep. So who says it?
Phoebe.
Phoebe. No, I don't
Yes.
remember. I remember the line but can't picture it.
Yes.
All right. Well, speaking of Ross, what three words does Ross use to describe Chandler when he considered calling her machine to see how many beeps there are?
What?
So, what three words does Ross use to describe Chandler when he considered calling her machine just to see how many beeps there are? The lady he went on the date with.
Yes.
Um,
Is needy one of them?
Needy is, yep. That's the middle one.
Okay.
Because I think Chandler says, "Does it seem a little bit?" And Ross goes, "Bam, bam, bam." I think I'm suddenly second
Crazy?
guessing. No,
Is
but
crazy?
you're in the right.
Okay. Stalkerish?
No.
I don't know. I
All
give up.
right,
I got one. I
you
got the
got
one in the
one.
middle.
You got
Yay.
one. Desperate, needy, pathetic.
There you go.
That's
Okay.
it.
For Chandler. All right. So why did Barry have to leave the room whenever Mindy and Rachel were breaking up with Barry? Why did he have to leave the room?
Because I'm going to try and get his name, but the kid is choking on his retainer.
Yes.
And here's how I looked out because it's the same kid that's in the previous episode, but he's got a different name.
Yep.
Yeah, and is it Jason Castellano? Or am I making that up?
That is wow. I
It's
wrote
close.
down Justin Castellona,
That's
but
it. That's what
I
that.
don't know. Yeah.
All right, we're
That's
almost there.
awesome.
All right, let's see. I've just got. Are you out of questions?
I am.
All right, I've got two more, but one of them's unfair, so I'm just going to go with one.
Ooh, no,
Um,
you're gonna have to ask them both because that's funny.
okay, we'll do.
All right.
Well, first of all, the telephones are quite prominent in this episode.
Yeah, they are.
What color are the boys' and girls' phones?
The boy's phone is black, and the girl's
Yes.
phone is that tannish, whitish, like the epitome
Yeah,
of a '90s phone, wireless phone. We had that phone.
I did, but somewhere between white, tan, and grey. So
There you go.
yes.
Yes,
Now
nice.
I will tell. I wrote down one final question because I was very excited because I thought the answer was something different.
Oh,
But then I went
fun.
and I was gonna bamboozle you with a crazy piece of information. But then I realized my answer was slightly wrong. So the question
Oh,
was, what are the prominent colors of Monica's kitchen chairs?
what
I
are
know. Maybe
oh.
the cushions on them or they're painted.
Okay,
Everyone's quite
so I
distinctive color.
uh, okay, because yeah, Chandler, whenever he's sitting on the back of it and he's got his feet in there,
Yeah.
and it's like a purple or a green.
Yep, so there's a purple one.
Okay, um, red,
Red, you are 2 for 2 so far.
blue,
No, no.
ah, yellow.
Yellow, you are 3 out of 4, and there's one more.
Okay, so I've said purple, red, yellow, orange.
Not orange, but close, but a duller version of orange. That's a very odd thing to say. The
What
most
is a duller version of
that was a
orange?
terrible clue. A terrible clue. As soon as I said it, I was like, that doesn't make any sense. The most
Brown.
brown. There you go. Yeah, there you go.
Was it
Maybe
really brown?
it really is brown.
Wow. Okay.
Maybe the clue wasn't so bad after all. I don't
There
know.
you go. I love it. Great job.
Because I saw those and I thought, well, that's kind of interesting because I'm convinced the furniture changes a lot more than I care to realize, or that I realize
Yeah.
like because once in a while I'm like, that's brand new. Anyway, I thought for a second that the colors matched the umbrellas in the opening scene or in the opening
Oh.
credits, and they're close,
Oh.
but they're not quite. So
Oh.
I got very excited thinking there was a connection there, but there's really not. I don't think. Um,
Man.
but
That would
anyway.
be a very fun connection, wouldn't it?
Yes, yes. So, there we go. But anyway, let's get on with the episode. Well, we will see where we are. Let's see. I think I've got our printer was on the fritz, but it's working now. So I've got my notes here. We start off in the girl's apartment, as you were saying, talking about the toughest snack there is. Um, and then they see somebody peeping on them from across the street. And I got to tell you, so I watched this yesterday and made notes. Then Kate and I watched it again this morning. And when they're looking at the peeper, she immediately locked onto the fact we see the entire back wall, the fourth wall, if you will, of the apartment. I mean,
Oh, wow.
there's pictures hanging, there's all sorts on the wall. We've seen bits of it
Uh-huh.
before, but this is really the first time we see anywhere near that level of detail. Like they must have built the entire fourth wall, put art on it, all sorts, really for just this brief scene.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I didn't catch that because we've seen, like I said, we've seen bits of that wall before, depending on the shot that they've done. Um, but I thought that was a pretty good catch. Um, but they're pretty disgusted that there's peepers across the street looking at them. And then I think it's Phoebe, right, who goes, "Oh, that ugly naked guy."
Yes, with
This
his
was
gravity boots.
it's gravity. That's a throwback. I never had any. I think I can picture them. You kind of bounce around, right? Is
I
that kind of
think
what they are?
so.
Yeah,
I I don't know. I
yeah,
honestly like in my head they're gray
right.
and then they've got weird bottoms and that's all I can I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I missed that
But
trend. Yeah.
okay, now I have a question though.
Yes.
Whenever they were talking about Mr. Peanut and Mr. Salty and they'll come up again at or no, Mr. Peanuts just will come up at the end. I didn't know who Mr. Salty was. Did you
I
know?
I do not. I still don't. I did not look him
Oh,
up.
okay. Well, he's the it's Mr. Salty. He's a pretzel. mascot.
Okay, that makes sense.
So
But
yeah, just very random. But I was like, Mr. Peanut, everybody knows that.
yeah,
But Mr.
he's
Salty, he's a pretzel.
yeah. I wonder if that's more of a regional thing or something. I don't know. Yeah,
I
never,
don't
not heard
know
of
either.
Mr. Salty. Um, but speaking of things we don't know, we kind of move into Central Park on the next scene, and Chandler's reminiscing about this incredible first date.
Yes.
Um, and you know what? I think he says school children will study it in the future and all that sort of thing.
Yes.
But God, he's not going to call her the next day. I mean, that would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so one of the great things we've mentioned this, I've mentioned this probably almost every week, is it's making me dig into things that I didn't know and just glossed over. So Phoebe tells him to stop being so testosterone-y. And Chandler says, "Oh, the real San Francisco treat." I have never understood that joke. Didn't know what it meant.
Really?
Didn't know, had to Google it this week. Just
Rice. Oh, Rhodey, the San
right.
Francisco treat. Ding ding.
You know,
Yes.
and when I mentioned this to Kate, this what must have been last night, she sung the jingle too. So that's really
Yeah.
funny that you just did. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Because it's
yeah,
one of those like jingles that lives rent free in your brain for your entire life.
I,
Like that's and
I,
it was a cool commercial like with a little trolley thing or trolley car like going up and down the hill. Uh-huh.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I did a whole deep dive into it, and I mean, it's an interesting story, but not enough to kind of sit here and tell the whole story. But
No.
basically, yeah, there was a young married couple who lived with an Armenian lady, and I think he worked in a macaroni factory, and then basically she had rice at her house, and they decided to throw it all in one box together, and they said, "We've got rice, we've got macaroni, let's call it rice-a-roni." And that was really it. There's probably more to it, but the story wasn't as fascinating as I thought. But really, just yeah, they combined these two things, and rice-a-roni, the real San Francisco treat, was
Ding
born.
ding.
Yes,
There you go. Oh,
yeah, never heard of that before. Anyway, we're an educational podcast, as we've decided.
because every
So,
day
is a school
is a
day.
school day.
Exactly.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, Rachel comes in, having been out with Barry. Ross is about to have some kind of aneurysm, I think. He's wondering what's going
Oh,
on. Um, and they went out. They went to the Russian tea room. He bought her some kind of perfume. I don't quite remember now.
Chanel.
Chanel. I imagine that's quite
Chanel.
pricey.
Yes, it is. And, it's important because it'll pop up again in a little bit.
Indeed. I thought about that after. I was
Uh-huh.
like, that was well played in the beginning. But Rachel
Uh-huh.
had a great time, and it was comfortable, and it was this and that. But Monica seems to be the voice of reason here. Um, you've got to end this. Um, and I think Rachel. I'm trying to remember now, but does she seem on board with Monica's idea of just ending it?
Uh, no, not really. Because wasn't she talking about, like it's fine, it's comfortable. It didn't seem to me like she was really. I
Yeah,
don't know.
she's
Because,
that.
but I know she went, like, that was the plan. She was going to go break up with him and then didn't.
And then in the next scene, you ended up. I mean, one of the shortest scenes of the episode. They're just in the chair together,
Yeah,
obviously having been up to no good. Um,
right.
and Rachel has clearly not taken Monica's advice. Um, But we kind of go to the B storyline here with Chandler leaving this scripted message on Danielle. That was her name, Danielle's answering machine. You know, the fork and the spoon and the bowl, and poor old
Yeah.
Chandler. Yeah, um, I mean, yeah, it took him 2 hours to come up with that. But you're right, he didn't leave his number, and that would have been a time that you would have. Um,
He didn't
and
even say it was him, I don't think. Like,
yeah, I think you're right. Now that I'm playing it sort of back in my head, I don't think he said
yeah,
his name.
he was just making sure that it sounded like he was having a life.
Yeah.
Like, silly goose. Silly
And
goose.
then Joey, or the person was the peeper, now has a telescope looking into the apartment, and Joey's affronted by this because he can't cook naked, which seems to put him off.
Nothing that splatters.
That's a great line. Although I had two thoughts on this. My first was, well, if he's in his kitchen, there's no windows there, so he'd be all right in the kitchen.
Ah,
Now granted, if he walks around, that's different. Um,
right.
but also, I was trying to think, if you're making toast, I don't think I'd ever considered that cooking. You know,
No.
just I mean, and I got thinking, and I don't have a point here, but like, what's the threshold of, do you have to have more than one ingredient? Does there have to be at least three steps for it to be actually cooking or baking? Because you just make toast, you don't cook toast.
Well, but you do something to the toast after you make it. Like, you don't
That's
just
true.
eat the toast by itself because that's gross.
You would have to be a madman,
So,
I think. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know about that there, Al.
Okay.
Everybody is not as fancy as you are. I
Right.
feel like it did not bother me. Like it was silly because it's like, that's things that my kids were able to do whenever they were like 4,
Yes.
5,
Yes.
you know. Um but yeah, no, I'm not mad at him for that.
Oh no,
Because we
it
also
just
know
got me
he
thinking.
can really cook.
Oh
We
yeah,
do know
when his
that.
yeah, we've already covered it when his dad was there, and he's slicing up
Yeah,
was it mushrooms and all sorts of things.
all the things. Way more
Yes.
than I care to chop up. So,
Right. Yeah,
so
but
I
he's.
say go
I do
Joey.
love that. Was it toast oatmeal? Nothing that spatters or splatters.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good line. Um, we go back over to Barry's office, and Rachel is
Well,
thankful. Oh, what did
wait,
I?
what I liked was the part because then they all look at Chandler. Like,
Oh, that's right.
Chandler, your roommate is walking around naked. Kick it. And then he's like, I didn't know that.
Right.
And so that kind of made me laugh. But,
It
and
was
then
a
I wondered, I was like, how would you not know? But then knowing that Joey keeps different hours and Chandler has a 9 to 5, like, that makes sense,
yeah. It would almost
not
be
making
more
dinner.
likely that Rachel or Monica would just walk into their apartment and see him, given the way that they all
Well,
just walk in and out.
yes, good
Yeah.
point. Good point.
Yeah. Yeah, but
But
let's see. We go back over to Barry's office. Um, Rachel is now having regrets. Barry wants to break it off with Mindy and take her back to Aruba. This is his line that he seems to just default to.
he loves
Um,
Aruba.
yeah, just go to Aruba. Just go. We'll start over. And was I right in thinking that the kid that comes in is the same actor that when Rachel goes to give the ring back?
I thought it was. I
Right.
thought it was the same kid. His hair looked darker, but maybe I don't know. Like I didn't look enough into it, but I was like, I wonder if that's the same kid.
Yeah, I feel
So I,
it's the same kid.
whenever you said that, I was like, oh, okay, that makes
Yeah,
sense. But mm,
yeah. I think it. Yeah, I think same kid, different name is what I'm going with. Um,
all right.
so I did. It was interesting. I looked up Mitchell Whitfield. He's the guy who plays Barry because I do think he plays him quite well. To me, he's a little kind of neurotic's not the word, but I quite like the way he speaks. He speaks very
Slimy.
quickly. He's slimy, but he plays it well. Like I don't like the character at all, but I think the actor Mitchell Whitfield plays him quite well. And I was kind of wondering about his voice because to me he speaks very quickly, and I was wondering if that was a character choice. But no, that's exactly how he speaks. He speaks with a very sort of quick cadence all the time. He's got his own podcast about board games, which I don't really have a
Oh,
particular interest in, but it's actually a really well done podcast because he's
interesting.
like a 30-year board game enthusiast. So it's him and then some guy who's like in charge of a board manufacturing company, some guy who's in charge of really popular games and created these games. Anyway, sidetrack. It's really quite interesting, but there's absolutely no doubt it's exactly the same guy because their voice is exactly the same. Um, but I think he plays Plays it very well. I think it's called Positively Board Gaming. If anyone's looking for a board gaming podcast, it's only like 5 episodes old, but yeah, I've kind of been enjoying it, even though I'm not really a big board game guy. It's kind of fun. It's fun to listen to.
There you
Um,
go.
yeah, but let's see. So they're in. Yeah, they're in Barry's office, and he's. Let's go back to Aruba. Go to the honeymoon. All of this kind of stuff. But we bounce back over to the girl's apartment, and Mindy calls Rachel, wanting to meet up with her. And that's when Rachel, I think, yes, she's walking around the table, changing directions, all of that stuff. Um, and Rachel
Hang
thinks,
on.
"Yep, what did
Wait.
I miss?"
Well, okay. Hang on.
Mm-hmm.
Because it didn't, before she calls Mindy, or
Mm-hmm.
before she talks to Mindy, it's the whole thing with the, with whenever he calls what's her name and then hangs up on her,
Oh, is that scene?
right?
I forgot to write that down. I think you're right. I don't think that fits anywhere else. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. That's it. Yeah, where he's desperate, needy, and pathetic, according to
There
Ross.
you go. Yes, yes,
Yes,
yes. That's
yeah,
exactly right. Yeah.
that's right.
And then he had hung up on her, and then she came in, and then Rachel comes in, and then that's whenever she kind of confesses and everything else, and then she starts with the walking in,
Yeah, and she
right?
thinks that. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, no, that must be it. Um,
Okay.
yeah, and I always wondered. Like, I remember, if you called somebody's house, but I don't remember if the beeps before you could leave a message was that like accurate.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
because it's
I
fast
didn't quite remember.
forwarding through the messages that are there
Okay.
to get to the next place on the tape that it's going to record.
Okay. So it's not some kind of urban myth. Like that really is the amount of
Mm-mm.
beeps. That's
No.
interesting. Yeah. Um,
Oh.
well, well, I guess it's now the next morning. We're still in the girl's apartment, and Chandler's staring at the phone on the table. I know it did get me thinking. When did you get rid of your landline, if you have indeed gotten rid of it?
Oh, yes. Uh, mm. I think whenever we moved into this house,
Right.
because I had a landline and then we had switched over to like Vonage, which was still a landline
Yeah,
dish.
that's a throwback. I'd forgotten that name. Yes,
Right. So I
internet
guess,
based phone. Yeah,
yeah. So I think like around 2000, like 14 is whenever we got rid of it.
right.
My parents still have their landline. They
Very
regularly
nice.
get all the spam calls, and literally I don't think anybody calls them on it, but they have one.
Yeah, my parents
But
still have theirs. It's a different phone system back home.
yeah,
So my sisters will still call that phone first. But yeah, I think probably about the same, maybe a
they don't.
couple of years.
How is it a different phone system? They don't, like, they have cell phones.
Yep. So basically, like here on your cell phone, the area code is the same as the landline. Like ours is 940, or 972 or 214 for Dallas. Whether it's a landline or a phone, in the
Mhm.
UK, the cell phones or mobile phones have their own area code essentially, that are different from landlines.
Oh.
So yeah, so it's a little bit different. Um,
Hmm.
and like my parents have like the lowest plan you can get with just X amount of minutes and all of that
Oh,
kind of
okay.
stuff. Kind of the original plan, that we used to all have with X amount of minutes. I think they still have that. So my sisters always try to call the landline first, unless they know they're out, and then they'll call their phone.
There
So
you go.
it's just a bit different, in terms of like area code. It's sort of a different system, whereas here they're more meshed together, the landline and um, your cell phone number. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it was about the same time. But you're right, we had that. I remember we had like an internet-based landline for maybe a year
Uh-huh.
because if the kids came home from school just before we did, there was a way of calling us, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of phased out 10 or 15 years ago, I suppose. But yeah, Rachel's getting ready to go and get. I can't remember how she describes it, but her I don't know, is her eyes gouged out or something at work?
Scratched out.
Scratched
Yeah.
out. There you go.
Yeah, she's got to
Um,
go to work and get her eyes scratched out by
that's
Mindy.
it. Well, we're in Central Park, and Mindy asked Rachel to be her maid of honor. Mindy's voice bugs me a bit, the way she's kind of, I can't even do the accent.
Yes.
Very Long
Yes.
Islandish, but kind of over the top.
Yes.
Um, a little bit. Now, tell me what you know about Mindy, Jennifer Grey, whoever it is, the nose. Um, Talk to me,
Okay.
because you know more than I do.
Okay, yes, because one of somebody made a comment about Jennifer Grey because you remember whenever Rachel called and she had found out that Mindy and Barry had gone to Aruba and
Mm-hmm.
everything, and then she was on the phone
Yeah,
with Mindy, and then she said, and I hope that your kids have your nose, if
right.
or whatever it was that she said, but made a comment. So Jennifer Grey, she was she like I would venture to say her most famous role was in Dirty Dancing with
Right.
with Patrick Swayze, and that's like that was the sleepover movie of every sleepover ever whenever I was growing up. But her nose was large, like it was larger, and then she got a nose job. Like I don't even recognize her. Like whenever
Right.
in this, I was like, I know that that's Jennifer Grey, but not because there's anything about her that stands out anymore. I knew that.
Interesting.
And so that's as much as I do know. But like it changed her looks very significantly where she doesn't even look like the same person.
Yeah, and I
So
think because it's. Tell me if I'm wrong here, but this is not Jennifer Grey, or this is in this episode.
yeah,
This is, but then
yeah,
she. That's right. It's a different actress in Barry and Mindy's wedding because she didn't want to appear because she had some sort of they say mental issues, but I think she had some, it was almost like stage fright. Like
yeah,
she stopped acting for a while, and maybe that's related. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, it's very much completely different actress when we
yeah.
see
Whenever
the
they
wedding.
actually have the wedding, yeah.
Yeah, yes, I think it's something. Yes, it was something to do with the fact it made her very self conscious, or something like that. I'll need to look it up. But
Oh,
yeah, Mindy admits that she was having an affair with Barry when Rachel and Barry were together. And this is where the Chanel comes back in that you brought up earlier. Um, because Rachel's wearing it on her wrist and Mindy smells it. And yeah, it's they both kind of realize that they've both been played a little bit by Barry in this episode. But wait, we go back over to, let's see, we're back up at the girl's apartment that Chandler realizes he's accidentally shut the phone off, which is what he told her he'd done.
that
Um,
was so funny. And then Monica's like, I thought you would appreciate the irony.
right.
He's so mad.
It's so funny. Again, that's when Joey comes in. As you said, he spoke to the doorman and found out that it's a Sydney Marks. Um, and the peeper starts complimenting Monica. And looks like Ingrid Bergman in the green dress. Um, which it's funny. It's again, there's some storylines that you see in multiple sitcoms of the time. And one of Frasier's first episodes, I think it was just maybe episode 4 or 5. There's a very similar storyline, but it's the whole episode is about Martin. Frasier buys him a telescope, so he has a hobby, and then he's looking through the telescope and sees somebody looking back, and they spend days and days writing messages to each other and just holding them up, and eventually it turns into a phone call, and then at the end of the episode they meet. But
Oh,
they're paying each other compliments and things back and forth on these these huge notepads. It's a great
Oh,
one.
how
Yeah,
funny.
yeah. So it's sort of funny that was reflected a little bit in this one. To me, it was I don't know which one was first, to be honest, but um, just a fun little storyline, I thought. Um, but we go back to Barry's office, and this is when Rachel and Mindy both march in. Um, I don't know. They're both. I don't know if they don't let him away with it because he kind of has to choose. But yeah, they're both going to break up with him, and within about 30 seconds, Mindy's kind of just forgotten all about it, has forgiven him. Um, doesn't honestly seem that bothered, to be honest. Um, it's a very funny, weird dynamic.
It is all very weird. Like, even
Yeah.
if we go back to whenever the two girls were talking and
Hmm.
kind of, just being completely honest with each other and telling each other all the business, and it's just weird. I don't
Yeah.
know. And then yeah, Barry's like, "Oh, eh, yeah, it's just weird." And as much as he's kind of slimy to me,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
you
without a
know.
doubt. And I'm not in any way excusing. I mean, Barry is a slime ball. There's no doubt. But I just can't quite believe how happy or comfortable Rachel and Mindy both seem to be with. Like they're not even really upset. Like they're kind of mad, but as soon as he says he's sorry, they're both like, okay. It seems to me. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and it was weird to me that, like, and I guess it's because everybody in that story just was wrong. You
Right.
know, like,
Right.
it's not like one was done more wrong than the other, but
Right.
even after the two girls had kind of talked through how what a crappy friend the other, they were, then they just hug, and then it's like, let's go get Barry, and then yeah, I don't know. I
Yeah.
feel like it's a sitcom. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't need to be dramatic, but it just
It doesn't.
seems very off the wall.
Yeah, and then Mindy's basically forgiven him straight away. Says she's probably still going to marry him because she wants to be whatever it's Dr. Barry Farber, DDS,
Yes,
something like that.
and go to Aruba.
Yeah, she's a very forgiving soul. It appears.
I guess,
Um, I
but
guess.
not really, because she was complaining earlier about the capri pants, and what all was she talking about? Whenever they were
Yeah.
going back and forth, and she was like, you're my oldest friend except for whoever Schaefer and
Yes.
all that kind of stuff. I don't know.
Oh, the friend she lost all the weight and she's still got like a something
Yeah, it
face.
turns out she didn't have a pretty face.
That's right. That's what I mean.
Dang.
I mean, yeah, it's a low blow by Mindy.
Uh,
I guess
uh,
she's still living in this kind of elite bubble of some fancy
yes,
part of Long Island. I guess this is what Rachel would have become, which we kind of allude to in the next scene because Rachel's kind of debriefing with Monica, and
yes,
I think she really does realize that this is what her life would have been. I think she sees her old self in Mindy to me, um,
yep,
and is really glad she's made the right choice. Um, she knows it's the right thing. Old Rachel might have gone back, even though she didn't seem that attracted to him. Calls him Mr. Potato Head and things at the beginning. But
yes,
maybe that
yes,
comfort and familiarity she talked about, she would have gone back. But she's grown, she's changed, and she knows that this is for the best.
yes.
Um, so, and we kind of skipped over this that I guess Mindy taught Rachel how to kiss. And then because Joey
Oh, and
walks in and sees
Joey's all, yeah,
yeah, and he's good old Joey, good old Joey. But we wrapped this episode up back in Central Park when Danielle shows up because she hasn't heard from Chandler. Thought she'd swing by, um, and then Chandler just sees that as desperate. I mean, the guy's just a train wreck, as we've discussed. when it comes to relationships. He is damaged goods. There's no doubt. Because I saw it as sweet. She did a nice thing. She just wants to make sure he was all right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then yeah, what a 180, right? Because it's
Right.
like the school children will be taught about this, and I don't know.
Yeah, it's just a funny one. Now, and I got
Mhm.
thinking at the end of this episode. So I think we are on exactly the same page when it comes to Barry and our feelings about him. But this
Yeah.
episode is called the one with the evil orthodontist. And I didn't think the evil was the most apt description. I think there could be
Mm.
other descriptions. So if you were going to rename this episode, the one with the something orthodontist, what
Uh-huh.
would you do to fill in the blank there?
Either slimy or gross.
I was going with slime ball or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Could
oogie. I
be
don't know.
oogie, yeah. Or uh oh yeah, I don't know,
Yeah,
Two-Face
maybe the Two
or
Face orthodontist.
or
Yeah.
indecisive orthodontist, maybe.
Indecisive to me is too nice. I'm indecisive
Oh.
about what to eat for dinner. You know, like
Uh, good point. Good
you know,
point. That's
for
fair.
me. But I just thought evil was a funny. Nothing about him struck me as evil. He just struck me as a yeah, loose morals and not a nice guy in a lot of ways.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Sucky.
yeah,
The
I'd go
sucky
with that.
orthodontist.
The sucky with the
There
dentist.
you
I
go.
like it. Well, tell me. Well, I tell. Let's bounce on over to listener mail, and just for no reason at
Yes.
all, let me see if I can introduce this properly. With for no reason at all, why not have a
I
drum
love it.
roll? Why not have a drum roll? For we had three pieces of listener mail that came in, so I'll read
Yeah.
these to you, and then you jump in with any feedback. They're very similar in tone. I don't think you'll be surprised. But Veronica, our friend Veronica Zahorakova, said that she didn't like this episode. I know they needed to somehow end things with Rachel and Barry. She doesn't like how Rachel is cheating with Barry. And looks of it is, and she didn't feel that Rachel felt it was a really big deal, and she just kind of laughs it off with Mindy. Veronica goes on to say that she's actually not a big fan of the first season overall. She felt it was too serious and not enough situational comedy.
Ah.
Really interesting take with that one. And
Yeah.
I won't know until we get further along, but I do know that season one's definitely not one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Not
No.
awful, but not one of my favorites.
Right, but good and solid in that they're developing all the characters.
Yeah,
I feel like we know a little bit more about Phoebe, but Phoebe needs a little more development. But you know, right there at the beginning, just trying to establish everything. I
yeah,
don't know, but I do agree because yeah, season one is not my favorite. I know that absolutely 100% for sure.
yeah. And I think it's
Um.
pretty common. I was just thinking, like Frasier breaks the mold a bit because they had Cheers. It was a spin-off. So season one is really good, but things like Parks and Rec, which I love, um, that first season was a struggle for me, and then it became incredible.
Mhm.
Um, Schitt's Creek, I think somewhere in the middle. Season one I thought was good, but was not certainly not my favorite either. But I do feel it started off quite in a strong way. But yeah, Friends, you're right. They had to find the characters, develop the characters. I think they changed a lot from their original vision as season one progressed.
Well, okay, and so one thing I do want to point out, and
Hmm.
absolutely, and you kind of touched on it briefly about Rachel, and she's changed so much.
Hmm.
Um, and I think, she said, I didn't like how Rachel cheating with Barry is looked at as something it's not that big of a deal. And I think that that's probably it was irritating the way that the two girls it's like, oh yeah, I messed around with him whenever y'all were engaged too, and okay. But
Right.
I think that it was to kind of close that whole story with her old life. It was more of a just to put a bow on it and be done.
I think you're right. And our next comment from Jessica Storm, I think, aligns with
Hmm.
that beautifully because she said the episode's just weird. I remember in the first episode, Rachel said, Barry, here we go, reminding her of Mr. Potato Head, and she was more attracted to the gravy boat.
Oh
Why?
yeah.
That was it. So why would she sleep with him again? It doesn't make sense to me at all. And it doesn't, but I think you're right. I think they kind of had to find a way of ending things with Barry and also sort of showing Rachel's growth as we get to we're near the end of season 1 at this point.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
it was also a nice little dramatic thing because it was like things with Ross are about to happen and then
that's
no,
right.
because
So we had
Barry
to,
walked in. So
yes,
it kind of paused a little bit more on the Ross and Rachel thing.
absolutely.
Um,
And
yeah. And
so
then
our
Katie.
Katie Condren, we love Katie Condren. She is
Yay,
a
Katie Condren.
a current co-worker of mine and then a former co-worker of all of it when DeeAnn and I and Katie used to work together. But we love Katie Condren, and Katie does not hold back. I was
No.
disappointed in Rachel in this one. She had just begun her independent, I don't need no man, I don't need daddy's credit card lifestyle. Then she gets weak and crawls back to this tool. Ooh, I hate Barry so much. He's a creepy little misogynistic jerk. And then Katie just reminds us that her feminist side is showing. Otherwise, good episode. Maybe it should have been the one with the creepy little misogynistic jerky orthodontist or something.
Right. There you
Katie
go.
should have
I
named this one. Yes. No, I
Yes,
agree.
or
You
just
can't.
the
Yeah.
tool.
Yeah. Just the one with the tool. Yeah, I like that one. Yeah, good old
Yeah.
Katie leaves the best comments. So thank
Yes.
you, the three of you. It always adds to our episode when we have listener mail. Makes us smile. We love connecting with you guys that way. So keep it coming in. The best way is through our Facebook group, the Purple Door Podcast group, or hit us up on Instagram too. We are over there. But who would you say is your Gunther Central part of the week?
Okay, so I had I had a little bit of a tough time only because it was so heavy about Rachel and I absolutely would not pick her for this week because no. But I picked Monica because she was just a good friend. She gave good, solid advice to Rachel. She gave good, solid advice to Chandler, and she was funny. Like she had some pretty good, quippy one-liners in this one. And I've made the comment in the past that Monica's not somebody that I normally think of being a really funny friend, but I think she actually is. Like
Yeah.
yeah. So Monica is my Guther Central perk of the week.
I love it. It may not surprise you to hear that it's mine too. I kind of wanted to choose Rachel because I like the way it kind of ended, where she's looking back in her old life a bit and is realizing um, that's not for her anymore. She was
Mhm.
tempted to go back. I think there was um, some comfort there, but she resisted. She realized she's not that person. So I like that about this episode, but she's too easy just to sleep with Barry when he's engaged to her former maid of honor, still kind of best friend. So can't look past that. So for the exact same reasons you just listed, Monica's mine too, because she seems like the level-headed person in all of this. Good, solid advice, being a good friend without being overbearing, and honestly, she's not always my favorite character. So when I see a really good Monica episode, I'm very much inclined to pick her. So I agree with you this week.
There you go.
There we
Or I
go.
agree with you, however you want to look at that.
Indeed. Indeed. Well,
But
and
Al,
this.
how many? I was going to say, how many
Mhm.
coffee cups did you give?
So I struggled a little bit with this one because I don't love the episode. I've got to be honest.
Right.
I don't love the main storyline, but I like the Peeper angle. I think there's some funny lines there. I like Chandler again. I do love a good unhinged Chandler. So I like some of the subplots I like, but I don't like the Rachel Barry Mindy arc at all. Um,
Yeah.
So last week was my lowest of the season. coming in at a
Right.
terrible 5.5. It's better than that,
Uh huh.
but anyway. I'm settling on a 6, which isn't great, but it's a 6 for me this week. No
It's
espressos, nothing like that. Just a straight
hmm
6 cups of coffee. How about you?
Yep, this one was 6 for me as well. And yeah, I don't know because the last week I gave it a 6.5, and yeah, I mean I don't know. There was yeah, I liked the monkey better.
Yeah, okay. I can see
So,
it's.
but that was just me because you hated it. You
I
hated
did.
hard on that episode.
I did a
You
bit.
hated
I did a bit.
very very hard.
Yes,
But and I was, I was not hating so hard. I hated a
you are
lot of
not.
things about it, but there was some clever funny things to me. But
Absolutely.
this one is 6 cuz yeah, me, it's all
Yeah,
right. Like I'm not sad about it at all.
yeah,
And
yeah.
but
6 just feels right for this one. I'm right there with
yes,
you. Well, I've got
there
to
you go.
tell you, next week I'm looking forward to next week. We're discussing the one with fake Monica, and I've got to just tease a little
Yes.
something out there. I'm looking forward to this one. Now, so I reached out to Claudia Shear. She's the lady who plays fake Monica. We never actually found out her name, which didn't occur to me. And two quick things. I was really hoping to, be able to record a podcast with them. You throw out these things, and 99% of the time, people don't reply. And that's fine. I completely understand. She not only replied, she follows us now on Instagram, but I had to apologize. She is doing auditions and rehearsals, and said basically she is completely tied up for a long time and didn't. I think she kind of said she didn't want to kind of just do it if she didn't do it right. But she was very nice, sent us a message, replied. So I've got to give a huge, huge shout out to Claudia because these people who
Wait,
are in the business, I'm sure they get messages all the time. They may not even see them. That's fine. But she got back to me within 24 hours and was appreciative. So a huge thank you to Claudia Shear, and I'm excited to review her episode next week.
yes. Ooh, well, whatever she is working on right now, I wish her the absolute best of luck, and maybe we'll dig around, find out, what her project is right now, and
Yeah.
continue to support because that's just so cool.
I
So
think I'll
cool. What a
send her a message and ask her what it is because I'd love to just promote it on here, talk about it, make sure it's out there in the universe if that's something that she's open to.
yes, because
Yeah.
it's just all the good vibes. All the good
All the
vibes.
good vibes indeed. Well, on that note, yeah, next week it will be the one with fake Monica. But we've had a great time this week, and thank you guys all for listening to the Purple Door podcast.